welcome to TSP Weekly. This is your tech startup podcast for Thursday, July 16th, 2015. Today we are recording once again at the Communitech Hub in the Hyde Room. I guess it is kind of well hidden, this room. That's probably not why it's called the Hyde Room.
That's all you got?
Yeah. I aspire to make the cheesy jokes like you do, Stephen.
That was
they
good.
Always fall flat.
Yes, that was like a Gouda, I believe.
Right. A Gouda joke?
Gouda cheese.
Oh, dear.
Cheddar joke.
That's right. Well, let's do some introducing here. My name is Darren Conley. I'm a local tech entrepreneur here in Kitchener-Waterloo. I should be able to pronounce that right by this point in the podcast, you think, right? With me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, fellow tech entrepreneur Stephen Campbell. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Guess what happened? Guess what's happening in Guelph?
I don't know.
Startup Weekend is back.
Right.
So August the 28th to the 30th, Startup Weekend.
Great place to meet a co-founder if you don't have one already.
Absolutely.
And you live in Guelph?
Yep, you've been through the Startup Weekend over here at Communitech on the KW side.
Yeah, I've been to a couple, and I actually did meet somebody who I am working on a project with right now at Startup Weekend, so it's hopefully going to pay off for me participating. Great stuff.
They have some good judges and some great speakers, it looks like.
And we're trying to see if we can weasel our way in to do some coverage of the event.
That'd be awesome.
You might hear something on the podcast in the future about that, but you'll have to wait and see. Let's introduce our guests. Joining us today, we have Mr. Jason Ernst and Tom Hummel. Am I saying your names right? We didn't check this beforehand. From Redtree Robotics. How are you guys doing today?
Awesome.
Really good. Excellent.
It's my birthday today, too. So.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I think it's Darren's birthday this week as well, isn't it?
Yeah, it's coming up.
July, man. That's best time to have birthdays.
The time to be. I guess November is the time to... let's not get into that. Can I ask how old you're turning, Tom?
29.
29.
So is Darren.
I remember those days. About 11 years ago. Yeah.
Quite
crazy.
blurry.
Wow. Well, that's awesome. Happy. It's actually today?
Yeah, actually today.
Today's the actual day. Are you doing anything special for your birthday today?
Apart
from being on the podcast, of course. We know how big
you know what? Like, probably just go get a few beers at a pub in Guelph, and gonna go see Weird Al tomorrow. So that's gonna be pretty sick.
You know
that'd be
what?
cool.
I hinted to my family that I would really love to see Weird Al for my birthday, and I'm hoping somebody is going to surprise me with some tickets to actually go to the concert. But
see how your
Weird
hint
Al
worked out, eh?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I know there's something going on for my birthday. I just don't know what it is. So if it's that, I'll be very happy about that.
How do you lay a hint out in front of Caleb? How's that whole thing work?
My 5-year-old?
Yeah.
Yeah,
How are you subtle about
stuff.
Weird Al Yankovic with a
But
5-year-old?
he doesn't tend to buy me concert tickets very often.
True.
It's the rest of the family.
Yeah, you can only see the Wiggles so many times.
Yeah, fair enough. Weird Al, awesome. A man after my own heart here. This is great. So let's talk a little bit about Redtree Robotics. First of all, where does the name come from?
Basically, we're just sitting in the office, just shooting around names when we formed the company. And originally, actually, we called ourselves Impulse Engineering. Was the original name, and it was like, because we're being super geeky, because like in math, there's like an impulse function, and it's like a Greek symbol, and it's like, oh yeah, we could use that, and like whatever. It's like super stale. Right?
It sounds a little bit like if in the 80s they were going to make up like a high-tech organization to be the enemy of Knight Rider or something. It would be Impulse or something.
Well, it would also like it was like one step away from being called like Initech Technologies,
Right.
formerly known as
IE,
Initro
right?
Technologies.
Right.
Internet Explorer, they came out in the 80s.
Yes, that's right.
So we actually did the name search on Nuance, the name database when you name your company, and it turns out there actually is already several sort of like Impulse Engineering, Impulse Technologies, et cetera, Impulse Robot. So it's like, that name's not going to work. We need something more. We need something cooler, something that is just really simple and something that can be represented in image very easily. So like we're just throwing out colors and shapes, and we just like looking outside, and it was like, oh, what about red tree? Because we were on the color red, and like see a tree. And I was like, I don't know, and it's like, yeah, that works.
Yeah.
And then we drew the circuit board type of logo and started from there, and we thought that looked cool. So
Wow. That's awesome.
And
I like it.
There it is, yeah.
It sounds, because it doesn't sound like stereotypically robotic-y, right? But it still has that nice connotation of growth and color.
And you know what the crazy thing is, and we didn't know this until we formed, but there's actually a Redtree Productions company in Guelph.
Really?
So working with Innovation Guelph on a lot of our business development, and we'd say, oh, like we're Redtree, and it's like, what? Wait. Which one?
Right.
I think there's another Redtree in like Toronto, and like so it's not the most rare name, but
It's okay. Red is fairly common. Tree is fairly common. So there were bound to be more people who would put them together.
And it is an alliteration. I'm a big fan of the R and the R. The Redtree Robotics.
Yeah, it's a nice alliteration.
Rolls off the tongue.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that's excellent. All right, and so we know a little bit about the name now. Now, what do you guys do? I'm guessing you build robots.
What is it that we do here?
Roger. People coffee.
Sure.
No, so basically what we're doing is we're building the full stack brain and nervous system for any robot. So the computer, the firmware that runs on the computer, a full cloud system on the back end, which lets any robot talk right to the internet or talk directly to each other if you want to bypass the internet.
Sure.
And we're eventually going to be rolling out at some point late next year the first app store for robots. So what we want to do is we want to create the first full-fledged ecosystem that lets anybody. If you can program a mobile phone, you should be able to program a robot that can communicate to other robots, that has things like stereo vision, that can fly, that can do all the sorts of, badass shit that robots.
What's stereo vision? Like you can see from through all the
3D,
robots at the same time?
See in 3D.
Oh, okay.
See in 3D. And just as an aside, that's very important because a robot, if it's even going to be semi-autonomous, like you might tell it where to go, but it still has to get there. It has to know how close it is to different things. It has to know what it is in its surroundings. And technologies like PhDs to do it right now. PhDs are very expensive. I'm the one I'm talking here.
I have a PH, but I know the D. Stephen. Spelled with a PH.
Right.
Yeah, it was given to me early.
Yeah, excellent. I'm glad that you've one up to me on the cheesy jokes there. That's great.
It's a good theme for today.
And what we found really is it's not even when you want to build a company, when you want to build robots that make money. To be frank, that you want to build robots that make money, you got to build this team. And not only do you have to build this rock star team, you've also got to spend a shit ton of time and money.
Yep.
Just building it. And I'm not talking about just developing the algorithms or developing the chassis, the mechanics and all that, figuring out the business. It's actually literally hooking wires together, custom circuits that, your competitor down the road already has, but, it's their thing. So you have to make your thing and you have to do all this reinvention, and that can take up to 2 years to do. And meanwhile, you're paying the Rockstar team. That's what your Rockstar team is doing. They're not adding value to any of the customer. The customer doesn't buy a robot because it's got like a green circuit board inside of it and it has this badass algorithm. It buys the robot because
it can do this or do that. Right?
Yeah, it does this or it
solves
does that.
The problem for
solves
them,
the problem.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in the robotics industry actually started to get into the weeds when they come and build. When they build these robots, they spend a lot of time on just like that technology. But eventually,
we talked to a lot of startups that are about agile methodologies. So how do you do when you have a 2-year build process? How do you get to the customer and say, "Is this something you guys want?" Are you guys building it?
Yeah, that's a big problem with any hardware company too, right? It's like, and especially in the high tech field where the product that you're delivering can do really cool stuff, and the customer, you can go to the customer and you can promise them the world, but they're going to say, "Well, show me." Right, but you can't show them because it's cost too much. So it really just comes down to your marketing and sales. Like you just have to have really good sales guys, really well marketed, and be able to explain what your robot does in very realistic terms.
Sure.
So that they trust you.
Now, you mentioned earlier you were thinking of building an app store for robots.
Exactly.
That seems to kind of indicate to me that an idea of having like a common platform for robotics,
and that's where we're going. We want to make sure that our computer and software has enough traction in existing robots. So that's why we're launching via Kickstarter in September, late mid-September, and by building that traction, we want to create a sales channel and a business case for potential developers to actually bring all those algorithms, all of that stuff. All that software, even some robot designs, and actually monetize that very easily. A lot of people, and I'm very well connected to the robotics academic community, where a lot of these startups develop algorithms for robots or develop chassis and et cetera. It's very hard to monetize that because what you have to do is you have to say, okay, I have this component for a robot, but there's no way for me to sell that other than open sourcing it. Maybe you publish a few papers and then that's it. Then it's not a business, right? Now it's like, it's charity or it's whatever.
A fun project.
It's a fun it's a hobby, right? So it's people are desperate to have a way to monetize their work.
Yeah.
And what we eventually want to do is give people an opportunity to monetize that work. And by doing so, it also adds value to our platform as well, because the more stuff that our platform can support and is built in to it, the easier it is. And our clients will love that too, because they don't have to spend a lot of money on a product that does everything.
Right.
The great thing about the app concept is they only buy what they need. When you get your iPhone, it doesn't come preloaded with every app in the app store, right?
Sure.
You just buy what you want.
Yeah.
And that should be the same way for robotics.
So when you're talking about monetizing and who the paying customer is for this, are you thinking about like the end user of the robot? Or are you thinking about other robotics companies that are going to buy into this platform and then resell that to an end
So for our market entry, we're starting on the hardware and firmware tool chain first. So the actual building the robot.
Right.
And the customers really love it because they get going quickly.
Sure.
Because it's so easy to develop for and so powerful. And we're very careful with our tool chain that you don't have to relearn a completely new separate set of tools. It works with our OS, works with OpenCV. If you want to do a custom C++ thing, we have an API for that. It's perfect.
So it's kind of plug and play.
Plug and play, that's right.
Yeah.
The process is seamless. We like to call it seamless robotics because you go from your idea to the prototype to the product seamlessly. There's no huge amounts of customization. There's no fretting about which component am I going to use that does the same thing as everyone else.
Did you hear that, Darren? No fretting at all.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so walk me through kind of a typical sales process as you would imagine it. Say I'm a guy. I don't know if you're your target customer or not, but I'm a guy who is interested in robots. I like to own a robot. I like to use a robot. I don't know how to write code in C++, but I think, how can I buy a robot that does what I want it to do and make it to do what I want to do without going through all of the hardware training and the software, knowledge development?
Well,
what would that look like?
In your case, like since you don't know C or C++, that would be a little bit difficult because our tool chain is not designed for. It's not like Lego in the sense where you have the brick and then you plug in and play. We're not there yet, and we won't be for a very long time.
So you still have to have some level of technical expertise to make it happen.
There's some, but to sort of target the types of people like you that do want to start playing around with our robots and use some of the power of our tech, for our crowdfunding campaign, we're going to be launching with some actual robots as well. So you can buy the actual computer itself for the really developer-focused people, or you can buy like a ground robot, a flying robot, or a boat or something like that, and you can just get started playing with these things. And then if other people invent things that can easily plug into it later, you can buy those and you can just snap it together and it'll work.
Gotcha.
So you don't need to necessarily be a robotics expert to make it all work. And that's sort of the other sort of thing that we're targeting with our product is someone like me. I've got a computer science background. Tom's more the robotics guy.
Yeah.
But with our stuff, I can actually start to build robots pretty easily with only a programming background. So I don't have much in the way of electrical experience and things like that. But the work that Tom's done on that stuff has made it so easy that I can just snap the parts together and program it just like I'd program a phone.
Okay. So
How about this? Darren? We get a couple boats. And we integrate the 3D printer onto them, and then we just have them self-replicate themselves. And then we have an army of boats.
And we take over the seas.
And we take over at least the Grand River, maybe.
No, that's cool. Well, and it sounds like from what you're describing here, like we know there are likely far more people out there with software expertise than there are with robotics expertise.
Oh, absolutely.
So you're essentially opening the world of robotics to those people who it would otherwise be closed to.
Yeah, exactly.
The whole idea is to have anybody build any robot.
Right. Gotcha.
That's basically where we're going.
So let me ask you this then. You have a robot here. We can't show it on an audio podcast, but
Scrappy.
we were watching you play with it a little bit earlier. What are some things that would make your robots unique from other robots that are being built? There's other robotics companies around, even in town. We have ClearPath Robotics and other people doing work in this area. So how do you guys stand out from the other crowd?
So
Robot branding? What are you asking?
well, there's that. So the robots that we're going to be selling on Kickstarter, and to be frank, those are only Kickstarter items. We're not committed to be selling those robots post Kickstarter unless they're very popular, in which case we are equipped to do that.
Sure.
But for the Kickstarter robots, the great thing about them is they're designed specifically to be modified. They come pre-integrated with the Hydra computer in it. already programmed and ready to use. A lot of robots that you buy off the shelf, and there's a lot of drones, like there's always another drone coming out every week, is they're not designed to be modified. Right? You buy a drone with a camera.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Done.
Gotcha.
Our drone has a camera on it, but it also is designed to actually do things in more than just filming.
Okay.
And that's where we think that robots are going to be going. Like there was one application where we see crop dusting.
Right.
With drones.
Right.
Or even certain security applications for policing, for crowd control and that sort of thing.
So,
there's all sorts of
yeah,
there's all sorts of uses where you have more than just a drone and camera. And then for the rover side, you really don't see a lot of rovers, and that's because they're very hard. They're actually a little more expensive than drones because the mechanics are a little bit more hardcore. They're also hard to automate. Because when a rover drives around, there's a lot of obstacles. You have to have the sensors to avoid the obstacles. You have to have the algorithms to tell the robot what to do when you hit them, or otherwise it's a remote control car.
Right.
Yeah. Is that a rover? I saw a video of you guys driving a large red.
So that's a typical like medium large size rover.
Yep.
Roughly equivalent probably to, I'd say, ClearPath's Grizzly product.
Right.
It's actually made by a company called ODG, and they're a subsidiary Argo.
Okay.
It's called the J5. So they sell, the military actually buys that. The U.S. military buys that specific robot. You can find pictures of it with like a machine gun on it. It's pretty badass.
Yeah, it looks like a pretty cool platform for a whole bunch of stuff, right?
Yeah, they don't. Now I don't think that robot is actually deployed with the military yet, but I imagine it would be within several years.
So let's say if I purchase one of your robots and I can buy a drone, and then getting back to your kind of app store idea, I could purchase and download different pieces of software.
Exactly.
Which would create different functionality for different purposes.
Exactly.
Right? Okay. And that's something that we don't see right now at all?
Precisely. There's some open source solutions like ROS, and we do support ROS. So ROS is like is pushed by the Open Source Robotics Foundation, and it's a great way for academics again to share algorithms. But it's a purely software product. So even if you have a module for ROS, it still has to be customized specifically for the actual hardware, the computer and the robot and everything that's running on. And that gets that's where the time consuming thing comes in. And of course it's open source as well, which means that there's no monetization.
Right.
And then that's where we see a lot of problems. So and people want to make money. Like, to be frank, people want to make money. So so in order to give them a way to do that. Yeah. The other thing that we do also is, and it's not just about making the robot work. It's about what, as I mentioned before, what the robot does. And that's where we start to get into the services side. So not only you buy the drone, you get the app, and the drone does something. We provide the software in order to manage that drone and get all the data off that drone so you can do something with it.
Okay.
So
I can be collecting drone analytics.
Well, exactly. Drone, rover, boat, anything. Yep. It's and not only does it send, it can also receive. So you can actually have swarms of robots communicating with each other via either the internet, and the other key thing is via locally. Okay. So our platform comes with Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and optionally 4G LTE. But it's not just about putting a radio on a circuit board. Yeah. It's about what we call seamless connectivity. And what that means is that you can use Wi-Fi and Bluetooth at the same time, and it'll choose which one is best depending on where you're talking, who you're talking to, and what you're saying.
Right. Interesting. And yeah, we had mentioned before we started recording, you guys had mentioned a little bit about synchronizing different robots together. So I could have, in theory, a fleet of drones.
Absolutely.
Flying in synchronous formation and doing different tasks.
Taking pictures of how many neighbors have pools, right? And then your analytics, the drones would say, okay, Darren, we've looked at all of KW.
Right.
And the pool to house ratio is...
Yeah. Absolutely. And this is very important in order to allow that swarming functionality, because as we see robots becoming cheaper and cheaper, you're not going to have the big expensive robot with all the bells and whistles doing the task. You're going to have a bunch of cheap robots with cheap stuff doing that same task.
Sure. So Darren can buy all these robots and then send his drones out to find guys with a Yoda shirt on and find me.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, you can in Communitech today.
You can run as fast as you want, right?
Still catch me.
That's right. I'll chase you with my cheap fleet of drones.
You'll be ahead of me because you'll always know what's happening. Like, I'm trying to come up with some user stories. Like, what are these? What are the use cases that you guys are envisioning being used.
I can think of things like we were talking about the fleet of boats, right?
Yes.
But if you're looking for like a body or something, right? Used for police investigations, and you can have like drones kind of sweeping an area and doing it overnight and whatever when humans can't take care of that.
Well,
I don't know. Maybe that's
it's really about removing humans from dangerous work, tedious work.
Underwater
difficult
welding,
work.
maybe?
Underwater welding is actually something that's being done right now by underwater robots.
Yeah.
Environmental monitoring, environmental sampling is very important.
Diaper changing,
cradle
pushing.
We've seen robotic cradles actually.
Wow.
But oil and gas pipeline inspection, pipeline repair, disaster mitigation.
Roving internet access.
Oh,
yeah. Doesn't Google want to put up some balloons with access?
And even the U.S. military is looking at flying drones over like Iran and basically providing firewall-free internet.
Wow, very interesting. Yeah. Very cool. Well, listen, before we get into the story of how you guys got started, which we'd like to dive into in a minute, we're just going to take a minute here to talk about our sponsor, Igloo Software. So we're going to run a quick spot for Igloo. Take a listen to this, guys, and see if it's the kind of place you might want to find yourself working at one day.
We'll be right back.
Mm-hmm.
Every week we're adding 2 new people.
We got all sorts of fun activities on the go. We also put a bunch of really neat incentives in place.
I mean, we get beer every other Friday. There's nothing wrong with that.
At Igloo, if you have a great idea and we think it'll work, we'll run with it.
Our culture is all about team. There's no hierarchy. We're very flat. And it doesn't matter that you just graduate. If you have a great idea, we're going to implement it. I tell anybody who wants to come, if you're looking for a job, don't work at Igloo. If you're looking for a career, then come to Igloo.
That definitely sounds like a cool place to work.
Absolutely. If you're not into robots, but into intranet platforms.
And who isn't, really?
I mean, hey, everyone loves the intranet, apparently.
I must say, you're getting much better at saying intranet than months ago. That was tough for all of us.
I have to think of it. I have to concentrate.
It's true.
So we are back talking with Jason and Tom from Redtree Robotics. Just taking it back, in my own childhood, the first character I really was in love with from any kind of story or movie I watched was a robot. I shouldn't say in love with. I liked a lot. And it was, I don't know if you guys saw this movie. It was pre-Star Wars, but The Black Hole. It was a Disney movie. Did you guys ever see this one from late 70s?
Describe the robot.
No.
What are the robots?
There's a whole bunch of robots. So there's 2 kind of floating, cutesy kind of robots, and a really big, scary red robot that had these claws that would shred things up. Anyway, it's a cool movie. Netflix. For the robots alone, I think you should watch that movie. Yeah. But and
Jason and Tom, their faces are blank. I don't think they're.
I know.
I don't know that they're with you on this one.
I know. Anyway, and then later on, it was R2-D2 and C-3PO were my favorite characters in Star Wars when I was 4 years old or whatever.
It's quite a robot fetish.
I feel like I've had this lifelong bond with robots, and so I get excited about the prospect of having robots around that. To do practical things, but also just because they're cool, because they're fun. What was it for you guys that made you want to be involved with robots?
Well, I've been building circuits and robots and stuff like that since I was 6.
Wow.
I've been also doing a lot of automotive work. So I've always been mechanically minded, electrically minded from a very young age.
So he was building that robot while you were watching that movie.
I wonder. Well, there's an 11-year age difference too. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah.
So I was the kind of guy that'd be going to engineering science quests at UW, right?
Sure.
Total nerd, and so naturally that I went to engineering at the University of Guelph, and and it was it's called systems and computing engineering, so it was a lot of embedded stuff, a lot of mechatronics. I did that. Oh, go ahead.
Can I ask what kind of robots you were building at 6 years old?
It was just little single
robotics?
Circuit board kind of stuff. Lego robotics, actually. When I was actually in grade 7, actually, my school was one of the first schools to get Lego Mindstorms.
Oh, right.
So I actually was the one I would actually spend like 2 hours after school every day to start developing curriculum material with my teacher.
Wow.
Because it was actually my English teacher that headed it up, but he was also like super, like, he was like an Apple fanboy. We won't judge him.
Sure.
But, you know,
But really into robots.
but really into robots.
Do you ever see those toys? Once again, I'm dating myself. The toys from the late 80s called Robotics. The name of the toy was Robotics.
I know the one
with an
Yeah.
X.
I've seen that
It
one.
was like, yeah, it was pieces. It was kind of like Lego-ish, but pieces you put together, and they came with motors that you plugged into little switches, and you could make
Exactly.
them move around and stuff, right? I had a bunch of those and thought, here I am playing with robots, but, you know, it wasn't really making robots. But still, like, it was cool. Yeah.
You know, and then I graduated my undergrad, worked for 2 years in actually just like process automation, factory automation, and I actually learned a lot about how machines work and how high value machines work in a money making process.
Right.
And that's actually something that we incorporate into our product. So taking that information, and I kind of got bored with that job, went back, did my master's, worked on automotive mechatronics. I was doing electromagnetic valve trains, so taking an electromagnet and making the valves in a car engine move up and down instead of a camshaft.
Fun.
So that was pretty cool, did that. But while I was doing that, I was working for another company, making spectrometers, and a local company here actually, and really great technology. And one of our clients was a robotics company in Toronto, and they wanted to put in the Canadian Space Agency, the CSA, was having a competition for small Mars rovers, and they wanted to enter into that tender, and so they used our spectrometer on that robot for that tender. And
Are you about to tell us that you put something in space?
no, I don't think that one ever actually ended up in
okay.
space.
I was getting all excited.
But it was for space.
Okay.
So so just working with their team, and we had a lot of issues integrating the spectrometer into the robot, and the spectrometer were great and everything. It was just getting it talking to their computer, and so as I was diving more into, you know, well, how does it work? Why are we having these problems? I was talking to their engineering team a lot, and I was like, man, like, it's so hard to put robots together. And I was like, you know what, you're right, because when after I left that company and did my PhD in...
I sort of extended that farther. Instead of just using Wi-Fi, it used all sorts of technologies, so like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, 4G, like any type of network. And my PhD was all about how do you select the best network, how do you rank networks so that you can pick the best one to be using at all times. So I sort of took a lot of what I learned in that and started applying it to Redtree, and especially how do you keep things to connect together as they're moving around. So like the way I was thinking about it in my research was more like people with cell phones. As they're moving around, they're sort of like random. You can't really predict where they're going. You certainly can't control where they're going. So it became a lot more interesting in Redtree when we had the ability to sort of control where the robots are going, because then you can sort of make sure they stay connected in like the best possible way. So that's some of that stuff sort of goes into our product.
And each robot is a node of the network, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So,
That'd be really fun to do some of that high-level thinking and design work on sort of the robot network.
Yeah, so my role has been a lot of the communications, and then also on the software side, like code management, setting up like our internal operating system, some of our API and stuff like that. And Tom's focus has been mostly on the electrical side, the really low level software, and some of the sort of real time focused stuff in our operating
Do you
system.
get to do any soldering at all?
Tom taught me how to solder. I'm still really bad at it, so that's why we use connectors for.
Fair enough. That's an honest answer.
Well, actually, and I just wanted to add too, the communication piece is really important. We find when a lot hobbyists and companies alike, when they build the robots, all that focus, because they spent all this time connecting everything, components together, building the chassis, and just getting it driving around or flying around.
Yep.
The communication is usually left as an afterthought, and that's a big problem.
It's like documentation.
Because you can't, because it's like, oh wait, it's mobile. We can't just plug it in, right? Like we don't have a dev board on the desk anymore. We can just sort of talk to. Now you need wireless. Okay, so we'll drop Wi-Fi on it. It's not that simple, right? Like there's, you have range issues, you have obstacles, you have, networking issues. It's not real time, so you end up things that you assumed would work okay don't work so well anymore, and that's a big problem that we see.
Sure, absolutely. Going back a little bit to how you guys got involved in working together. Did you guys know, like, as soon as you met, like, we're going to build a robot company together, or is this kind of the first project you guys started, or was there previous things that you tried out before this, or what? It's just interesting to hear how kind of things evolve with co-founders.
I think at first, actually, the TAing together was actually kind of rough. Like, I don't know if we did such a good job. It was both our first course and stuff, so we were the first course we TA'd. So it was really stressful. But after we made
an early pivot.
Well, yeah. After that, like once we made through that course, it's like I think we can make it through a company after that, because that was a million times more stressful than anything in the company.
That was the testing ground for the relationship. Yeah,
and we always talked about we were always talking about each other's research and like how we could make something cool together. So it came about after probably a bunch of times just hanging out at the pub and like talking about what we're working on, and then eventually it just like clicked together, like how it could all fit.
Sure. Click together. That's like a robotics reference. Right? No, it's good. Cool. So how did you guys get started then? How long have you been doing this for at this point?
We've been doing it a long time. We incorporated the company back in, I think it was 2011. And, but that we incorporated with at the beginning of my PhD. Actually, I wasn't even in the PhD when we incorporated, and Jason was.
You're just a PH?
Yeah, I was just a PH.
I know how you feel, bro.
But because we incorporated because we knew that unless we had something on paper, we'd probably just treat it as a hobby.
Right.
And we didn't want that to happen. We were committed to the success of the project, but we were also committed to finishing our PhDs as well.
Yeah.
So it was kind of slow
finished?
going. We're almost done. I'm defending in September, and I think Jason's going to be defending around the same time.
Oh, awesome. Very cool. Sorry to interrupt. Keep going. Yeah.
So it was kind of like a part-time thing because we were really focused on the technology at that point. It might not have been the smartest thing to do because, one thing we've learned is sell early, then develop.
Right.
But, hindsight, right? So we were really focused on building out the core of our technology on the software and communication side.
Sure.
And then you started getting to the end of our PhDs. We were saying, well, so are we going to get a job? Or are we going to continue with the company? Are we going to try and get some money? Or what's going on?
Backpack Europe.
Yeah. So we took the startup train down to Startup Fest in Montreal, and Jay managed to find us an investor. We pitched to him. Loved our product pretty much instantly. Got $100,000 to go to Founder Fuel.
Wow.
In Montreal. So
C'est bon.
So we were in Montreal from September to December. The funny story is I got married last year in July.
Yeah.
My anniversary is actually next week.
Wow.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Birthday, anniversary. Yeah.
I know, July, right?
Yeah.
Busy time.
But the funny story is I go to Startup Fest. We're getting married in 3 weeks. Come home, tell my fiance, and be like, "Oh yeah, by the way, in like 2 months, I'm leaving you for 3 months." She was cool. She was all good. She was like, "Oh, that's awesome, totally." So
it's all part of the future robot takeover.
So we were in Montreal. So basically, that initial investment, even though it wasn't customer investment, it was like, you know what, there is some money interest to put behind people. Somebody wants to see this idea happen. And
getting $100,000 handed to you right out of the gate, more or less, is
we got lucky. We got really lucky.
That's very rare. In the
guys at Real Ventures are all great guys. They've been really helpful. And so it's.
I like how Tom sort of says, "Yeah, and Jay found us $100,000."
Well, he did actually. The funny story is
look on the ground.
It was the first guy that we like. So the way Starfest worked was they had guys with different colors of tags depending on if they're investors or startups. So it's like, all right, Tom, we gotta at least talk to 10 of these guys with the investor tags.
Yeah.
And we're looking around. Some guys look super scary and stuff, super stiff business guys. And we see this one guy that's he's an older looking guy, but he looks pretty cool. So we're like, all right,
is he wearing a Yoda shirt?
Nice
he probably owns that same shirt. I wouldn't be
And we go up to talk to him, but he's already talking to a guy. So I'm doing the awkward staying there waiting for him. And Tom's like, "Oh, I can't handle this. I gotta leave."
I hate doing that.
But it was excessive. But it was excessive length. It wasn't 10 seconds where the guy was like, "Oh, okay, see you." Hey, it was 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
That was
your watch,
it was the worst
foot.
5 minutes, but it was so worth it because I started talking to him and he's really loving it. And I'm halfway through telling him what we do, and Tom finally sees him talking to him, so he comes back in and finishes the other half of the pitch, and it was good.
So it was good. They took a bet on us, and I think we're going to deliver this. And it's so we came back, in January.
Can I just say quick, that's such a good testament to put yourself in an awkward situation because you never know how well it's going to play
have to.
off, right?
One thing I've learned too is you can't be shy. I mean, a lot of we meet a lot of prospective entrepreneurs too, people that have a great idea and they want to get started and they want advice. You know, and my number one advice is, you know, just ask the question.
Yeah.
Like, close the deal. Just ask. Will you buy it? Will you invest? Like, what?
Yeah.
You got to put yourself out there.
Nothing comes from not saying anything, but plenty of things can come from
exactly.
nothing.
And some people, you know, and some people will rationalize. You know, like they'll be afraid. They'll be like, oh, that person won't buy it. I'm not going to talk to that. He'll never invest. I'm not going to talk to him.
Right.
You know, we see that a lot. That so a lot of hardware companies fail just because they want to perfect the product. And I think we were kind of guilty of that. We're kind of recovering. We made that mistake too much on product, and we're sort of recovering from that right now.
Fair enough. Yeah.
You know, things would be a lot easier for us if we did everything right the first time. But hey, you know what? That's
very few of us can do everything right the first time. Yeah,
the next company is always the best one.
Hindsight helps a little bit.
Sure.
So yeah, but it is hard. It is hard to sell before you have something.
Yeah.
It is pretty hard to go and tell somebody and be like, hey, let me deliver this to you. It's this much money. And it's like, can I see it? No, but you can see it in like 4 months.
Right.
But if they really want that, one thing we learned, if they really want that idea, they're like, okay, sweet.
Yeah.
Just put it in the agreement that, you know, if you don't deliver or whatever, they get their money back. But like,
right.
So
yeah.
It's not that bad. So we came back in January to Waterloo. Our investor, even though we're not Waterloo alumni, we have no affiliation with we grew up here.
Yeah.
But we didn't go to school. Jay did his undergrad at Laurier, actually.
Okay.
Go Golden Hawks.
Steven spent a little bit of time at Laurier.
Yeah. Our investors know the guys at Velocity, so they made the introduction to Mike and Peter, and you know, they love the idea, they like the team, so they made an exception. So here we are at Velocity Foundry and launching the product. So
that's awesome.
And that was January this past year?
January 2015.
2015. Okay, right. So you, just to set the timeline here, it was like a year ago, more or less, that you started the pitching, got your investor, headed to Montreal for this past fall.
Actually, a little bit before that, we had our first bit of success with a local incubator called The Hub, run by the University of Guelph. So we got a tiny bit of money, and that let us build our really early first hardware prototype. It didn't even work, and that's what we went to Startup Fest with. But just showing that we had managed to produce a board, and it sort of worked, but not really well.
It didn't work.
Yeah. it pretty much blew up.
There was rework required, but
it did something. It blew up, right?
I mean, you know what? And that's the other thing I would say. Advice for hardware companies: build mock-ups.
Yeah.
If you can just show something that even if it doesn't work, that they can hold.
Yeah.
That somebody can hold, an investor, or even more importantly, a customer can hold. Yeah. Then that makes a world of difference.
It really extends the vision for them.
Well,
right?
because they can actually imagine that in their product.
And we were talking earlier about what is the name of that group? Bartesian? Bartesian? Yeah, Bartesian.
Bartesian.
Coming up on TSP Weekly.
That's right. And not a little spoiler alert for when they come on, but one of their first prototypes was completely not functional at all, right? It was a hose that they stuck into a drink. It's a machine for mixing drinks, for those who don't know. And they had a guy under the table kind of self-mixing the drinks and putting a hose in it and sending it up the hose into the person's glass, making them think that this was a functional product, but it wasn't at all. But, like you say, it totally gave the idea of what the final product
It's about the marketing,
right?
and the concept, right?
Yeah.
It's people want to know what you're selling.
Yeah,
and they'll and if as long as you're upfront with the customer that it is early, then they appreciate that and they'll trust you, and they're more likely to buy.
For sure.
Tom, in some of my research, when I was looking at your website, I saw a video where you guys had a gentleman named Mike with you.
Yeah, Mike.
And then you talked a lot about growing the team and what you're looking for in an intern now. So talk to me a little bit about who that guy was. Is he new to the team? Is he off of the
Mike.
team? And
So Mike was originally our third partner. Really good guy, but he found that continuing forward, with his family situation and everything, it wasn't really right for him, so he decided to leave the team, and so I think he's working at University of Waterloo right now, and doing what he wants to do, because he's a really good teacher, and so he works a lot with students as well, and he's actually finishing his PhD, funny enough, so it's actually 3 PhDs.
So the team is then just the two of you now?
The two of us, plus we have a co-op student, and we have a product designer, but what we're actually looking for right now is not an intern. We're actually looking for a chief operating officer to come in and be a partner with us.
Right.
So, if anyone's listening, we are hiring for that position.
Cool.
Yeah, we really need somebody that can sort of handle our shortcomings with the sort of business. So we're really tech heavy, obviously 2 PhDs, like computer science, engineering. So somebody with like an MBA background or something, but also has experience with like embedded side of things, that would be good. So they have an understanding of like how the
and it can be
production process.
It can even be somebody fresh out of school. We're really just looking for somebody that has really high energy and a high degree of competency. We understand that like experience is hard to come by, especially when you're a startup and you want to get someone to come into a startup. But what we want is someone that's very high energy, very hustle. Like hustle is like the main word, and someone that's competent, basically. And not an engineer. Ideally not an engineer.
Diversification time.
That's right. So you guys started with a Velocity Foundry in January, and it's been now 7 months.
6.5, right?
6.5 months, hanging out there. How have you found being in that environment? Has it helped? Has it hindered your
it's great.
moving forward?
It's great because the great thing about the Foundry is compared to Founder, at least our experience, like compared to Founder Fuel. Founder Fuel is really, really good on marketing, business development, helping you to understand your business. If you ever have a chance to meet the guys from Real Ventures, the key thing that they teach you is you have to understand what you're doing.
Right.
Like, what is your business?
What's the market?
You know what you're selling, but who are you selling to? Why would they buy? And a lot of people, and we have the same problem, can't answer that question very well.
Right.
It's because it kind of also, you have to start addressing some of the shortcomings in your business model. And some people are very uncomfortable with either accepting they have shortcomings or just talking about it. They just want to gloss over it and just not think about it, and everything's fine. But once you understand your business, then you can start moving forward with actually building it. Okay. The great thing about that's really good. But the problems that they have is they don't have that much of a hardware background or manufacturing background. So for our team specifically, it was we were a little bit lacking on that side, and that's something that Velocity is really good at. On the product side, how do you manufacture, on the supply chain, on costs, on actually, how do you make this hardware company a real business from the product standpoint? And that's what they bring to the table.
That's awesome.
How do you guys work with the other robotics companies in town? Do you guys get to go to their parties, or?
Yeah, we know the guys at ClearPath, the guys at AvidBots.
Yeah, what's that relationship like with the other guys? So you're talking about they have theirs built. We have to kind of build our own to get to the level where we can see if we can talk to each other and stuff like that.
Is there a level of cooperation, or is it like very competitive minded, or how do people see each other?
There's some cooperation. I mean, we've been talking for a while with ClearPath about how we can collaborate on things. So we're looking at trying out some of their stuff with our computer running on it. AvidBots, they're kind of early and sort of developing their own stuff, but we've had some coffees with them and stuff, so that's sort of ongoing.
Okay.
So not beers yet.
We find we actually have more traction with companies that that don't want to just focus on building a robot.
Right.
What they really want to focus on is building the product.
Right.
And so those kind of teams, they don't want to hire robotics experts, but they want to build the robot to do it.
Right. Gotcha.
Right? But the robot isn't their product, the service is.
Yes.
But they need the robot to do it. And that's really where we fit, because it's so easy to use our product and to get, and to basically, in the box, basically you have the competency of a robotics team, but you don't have to spend, the $250,000 a year of salaries. Right, of a team.
So you're making tacos and you want to deliver them by drones, but you don't want to hire somebody to build your custom taco drone.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
So you have to build it. So maybe you hire, instead of 10 engineers, you hire 2 engineers or something like that, right? And then you use our product, and you're off to the races.
That's awesome. When we're talking about collaboration or competition between the different robotics companies around town, all I could think in my mind was like setting up like robot wars.
Oh yeah.
There's actually
Robot Kitchener. Yeah.
There's actually one happening. There's in September, I think the guys that run Quartz Lab are doing a bot brawl thing. So
bot brawl sounds better than robot wars.
Yeah, we're trying to get involved in it somehow. So we're trying to find a team that wants to build a robot around our stuff and put it into the contest.
And there's some huge Japan versus America, like 9-foot robot.
Yeah, that looks awesome. Yeah.
We'll see if it happens. I don't know.
That's when you could tell, like the people who grew up in the geek era, like us, are now at the position of running companies, so they can afford to do competitions where giant robots duke it out.
Yeah, we should put a link up on this podcast for that, because that looks like it's going to be a blast.
Yes,
the American one looks very slow, but big.
Yes, absolutely. Sounds good. Listen, guys, before we wrap things up here, we have our... we never really settled what we're calling this. The Thunder Round now? That's a new take on thunder. Thanks, man.
You're welcome. That was really good, Tom.
Yeah.
What are you guys laughing at?
Hey, I'm not the sound effects guy, all right?
What we used to call the lightning round, now we're calling the thunder round.
Or whatever the
The
hell that
lightning
was.
round.
Yeah, where we're going to throw a bunch of questions, quick questions at you guys, and just see how you do before we wrap things up. Steven, you want to go first?
Sure, the dress,
Yeah.
white and gold or blue and black?
Oh, dear.
Blue and black.
Do you know
Blue,
who's talking
blue and
about?
black. Everyone knows it's blue and black.
Oh, jeez. Now I got to think about myself. Okay, here. What makes you jump out of bed in the morning? What makes you excited to get up?
Do you jump out of bed in the morning? Or is it more of a roll or a
Just
slide?
creating things, knowing that I'm going to wake up and then there's going to be something new that I created, whether it's on the business or on the product.
Okay.
Playing with robots, driving them around, flying them around.
Right?
Yeah.
Having them do your bidding.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Jason says as he has an Xbox controller and a robot right in front of him.
That's right.
That looks so cool. How do you guys measure success? How are you guys going to know that, other than the money and the investment, which is obviously helpful in measuring your success, but how do you guys measure that? Like, how do you know we've...
Whether we're personally happy with where we are in the business. So whether you actually have that feeling that, things are okay or they will be okay, and that, you're on track, you have a plan and you're on track to get to where you want to go. Because you can't, you might get nervous, you might be anxious and things might be tight, but as long as you have a plan and you're executing that plan as best you can, then I would call that, success. Because the business is always going to grow. It's never going to, you could always just say, once the business exits and gets bought by Google for $600 million or something like that,
Sure.
right? It's success,
If
I
you're
guess.
listening, Google.
But money's a given, right?
Yeah.
So
Fair enough.
Yeah, same answer for me. Just
thoughts, yeah.
being happy and satisfied with our job and our role in the company.
Excellent. It's a good question, Steve. I got to think of new questions. I'm using the same old ones every week here. My next question is, what is one of your hidden talents? Something we might not know about you.
I'm really fast on a mountain bike.
Oh, excellent. Cool.
I took mine.
What do you think, Jason?
Everyone knows I'm faster than you.
I can play guitar.
Okay.
While on a mountain bike.
Yes, and juggling.
What kind of stuff do you play on guitar?
Mostly classic rock.
Okay.
AC/DC, Zeppelin, stuff like that.
Gotcha. Very cool.
I'm going to go back to your 600 million selling to Google. So you've done that. And what are we buying? Are we investing? Are we donating? Are we philanthropy?
What are you going to do with your money?
You've got
is what he's
600
saying.
million. And when I say what are we buying, I mean you.
You know what? With that much money, obviously it's philanthropy, and no one can spend that much money. People can spend a lot of money.
I accept your challenge.
What would I do with the money? Obviously, just make sure my family's all well secure, and basically I'd probably start a robotics, almost like a robotics investment firm that focuses on that just only invests in robotics companies, and it's very easy for people to get small amounts of money. I would probably also structure it. It's detailed dreams, now. But I'd probably also structure it where the investment firm would actually also provide the product and everything, so that way you can focus on the robotic product instead of the robotics tech.
So like a Hydra for robotic investment.
Yeah. Jason and I,
That's
we're
how
actually
they
talking.
can market themselves. We are Hydra.
Think about it like a robotics accelerator. That's where I'd want to go.
That's
so
a
that
good
way
way
you
to put
can
it.
get people with great robotics ideas, but they don't have to. But they can focus on bringing your idea to reality instead of just focusing on reinventing the wheel all the time.
Right.
It seems like you've spent a minute or two thinking about how to spend that.
I think a lot about everything.
The robot world. What about yourself, Jason?
For me, it would be space, exploring and getting people to other planets, and
Cool.
making people live longer.
You could win that challenge of
Preserving,
spending 600 million.
Preserving consciousness, that's the other
You're
one.
going to be
That'd
hanging
a
out
big
with
one.
Elon Musk, and I think Peter Thiel is the one who's doing all the
that-
immortality research there.
Yeah, if they want to give me a
there
call,
you
that'd
go.
be fun.
Very cool.
Very cool. My next question is, what is one startup skill that you guys feel like you need to get better at?
I think one thing that we do really need to get better at is probably a lot of the nitty gritty business stuff. We know where we want to sell it. We're trying to do it, but what's the very specific things that we have to do to get there? And I think that's for us. Me personally, that's lacking, and that's hence why we want to bring on that third person.
Sure.
It used to be, I think, we kind of lack. We were a little shy.
Yeah.
Over the past, maybe around between January and April. but we sort of came over that challenge. So now we're trying to deal with the more technical business challenge.
Yeah, you guys don't seem shy at all, to me. Which that's great. Yeah? Any thoughts on that, Jason?
More or less same thing.
Same
Yeah, business side of things, definitely.
Okay, perfect.
So you guys, how about you're here in Kitchener, sort of the Kitchener-Guelph area. Would you go to Silicon Valley, or are there any other spots that you'd like to go as a company, or do you want to stay here in Kitchener?
We would go. Why? I mean, I would love to go. I love Montreal. I would love to live in Montreal for personal reasons. It's I love KW is awesome too. You know, I grew up here. I love Guelph. I live in Guelph actually, even though I grew up in KW, just because it's my preference. I just want get out of town, but not too far away, right?
Sure.
At the end of the day, we'll put the business anywhere we need to go. I mean, by the time the business is in a position where we would have to move to like somewhere else in the States or even like overseas to Europe or something, we could probably be in a position to telecommute. So I'm not really worried about where the business is. If we were to relocate to the States, it probably wouldn't be Silicon Valley. There's not as many robotics. There's a lot of investment, but most of the robotics companies are in Boston area, Massachusetts, New England.
Boston is like the Silicon Valley for
robotics? They're really trying to, the business community in the U.S. and the government is really trying to put all the robotics companies in that area.
Right.
And then Silicon Valley is more of a software shop, but a lot of the investors are there because software came first and then robotics.
Sure.
So I could see there's just like a lot of traveling between coasts.
They just, I was going to say, put everything on the edges, and then when a tsunami hits and wipes out both coasts, then you're really screwed. Your software and hardware is both gone now.
I'll meet you in Idaho.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, last question for me is give one piece of advice for new startups in 5 words or less.
Get the money.
There it is. I think that's our most succinct ever.
Sell?
Well, that's even more succinct.
Yeah, down to 1 word.
Ask the question. Right? Close the deal. That's the most important thing.
Close the deal. That's good.
And probably another one, just to follow up, is like the deal's not closed until the money's in the bank. Isn't that
right? Yeah. More than 5 words, but it's good advice. That's awesome. And our bonus question that we love to ask everybody is: toilet paper, fold or scrunch?
That's my reaction every time you ask that question.
Scrunch.
He doesn't use toilet paper. That's
Hey, air dry.
We can go with bidet as the third option, I guess. Maybe. But, scrunch, okay, Jason. What do you think?
Scrunch, definitely.
Scrunch?
Yeah. 2 scrunchers.
Scrunchers today. Crazy. That's insane. Well, cool. Listen, guys, if we want to follow the story of Redtree Robotics and how you guys are growing and developing, how can we do that? You mentioned your Kickstarter campaign coming up soon.
Yeah, Kickstarter. We have Twitter, Redtree Robotics, Facebook, Redtree Robotics, LinkedIn, same thing. Our website, we try to post on our blog and post updates there pretty often.
Yeah,
all the usual. Hackaday. We have if you want to look at how you can build robots around it, Hackaday, Hackster.io, a lot of those like sort of maker and builder types of things. We go to maker fairs, all the hardware.
We're starting to post up daily or every second day, like just tutorials on how to use our stuff. So we started off like just simple how to attach a motor, and then we'll be working up how to do 3D vision, how to do this, how to have 2 robots talk to each other. So as we lead up, like you're going to see more and more ways to use our stuff.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Jason, are you speaking at the Startup Guelph event?
Yes, I'm one of the speakers.
What?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Somehow I feel like you've set up that question.
I stumbled upon that last night. Yes.
No, that's great.
I was pretty excited.
And can we find you guys on social media and stuff? Where do you live online?
I have Twitter. It's thummel26, Facebook, LinkedIn. I'm not a prolific Twitter user. Jason is more.
Yeah, I am. I tweet all the time. My handle's CS grad on just about everything you can find me on, and then
World of Warcraft.
And does Redtree have a? Can we find Redtree on Twitter and stuff too?
Yeah, Redtree Robotics. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, it's on Twitter. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. And we'll put up some links to those places so people can find you guys and track what's going on.
Keep an eye out for the Kickstarter campaign.
Yes, that's
buy
right.
one of those self-replicating 3D printing boats.
This is in September, you said?
Yeah, we're looking towards the end of September.
Okay.
Oh, and if anyone can join our mailing list as well, it's right on our website when you go to there. If you're really interested in the Kickstarter, that's where we'll be sending out like the earliest news. So that's the best spot to find new information.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Sounds good. All right, well, let's wrap things up here. A special thanks go out to our guests, Jason Ernst and Tom Hummel from Redtree Robotics. Thank you so much, guys, for coming on the show.
Yep.
And we want to thank also Communitech once again for letting us steal some space and record our podcast here. And thank you, our listener, for joining us on another episode of TSP Weekly. Please feel free to send us your comments, your questions, your criticisms, your feedback. Our email address is feedback@tspweekly.com, or you can send us a message on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @TSPWeekly. So, from myself, Darren Conley, my co-host, Stephen Campbell,
Roger.
and our guests, Jason Ernst and Tom Hummel from Redtree Robotics, thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you guys next week.